we'll go get started. People are still coming in. I can still see the attendee list start to grow. So thank you for everybody that's joining us, especially if you are on the West Coast at 8 a.m. bright and early. I
Good for
apologize.
you.
I guess that's my fault because I selected the time. So thanks for being here with us. So you are in the right place if you're here from our presentation today called From Concept to Complete, Launching a Successful Campaign in a Digital Age. It's a very long title, but basically what it means is we just want to talk, kind of look behind the scenes a little bit of what it takes to get a campaign up and running. So both from an agency perspective, which will be me, and then also from a retailer perspective, which will be Ashley, who's here with me today, and we'll do intros in just a minute. So you've probably been to a presentation that we've had before. So we've talked about maybe organic strategy or paid strategy and launching campaigns X, Y, and Z, but we've never really talked about what it takes to get to that point and kind of how the collaboration works. So we thought it would be good to kind of do that today. And before we get going, so make sure that everyone's here. You're using the chat feature so you can chat amongst yourself with the other attendees, and then also use the Q&A feature. So we will take questions at the end, but as you have them throughout the presentation, go ahead and use that Q&A feature, and then we'll get to that. So we'll also have the chat feature open. So if anybody starts talking bad about us, we'll be able to see it in real time. So we'll be able to see that. And then we also have a code word for ourselves. So if you hear us randomly say mango, it means that the other person is talking too long and we need to keep moving. So just setting up some boundaries here. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we will dive into it.
If there's anyone from my team watching, then they know what that means. Ashley's code word for move on.
That's an Ashley special. Let's see. Got that pulled up. Let me get the chat pulled up here.
Cody, I'm so glad you're driving today.
I'll take care of all of it. I was hoping for no technical difficulties.
So far, so good.
So far, so good. All right, we are ready to go. So I'm not going to go into full screen. So you probably still see the top part of this preview bar just so we can keep the Q&A in the chat open so everyone can see. And we already have a shout out from Ben. So thanks for being here, Ben. Support from the team. I'm going to drop down and we'll go ahead and do intros. And Ashley, I'll let you go first.
That's us. First of all, thank you guys. I wish that I could see you all in your beautiful faces this morning. But my name is Ashley Stiegel. I'm from the family at Bremer Jewelry. We are a 2-store jewelry company in Central Illinois. So we have a store in Peoria that's been there since 1953, and then a store in Bloomington Normal, which is about an hour away from Peoria. That's been open for almost 16 years, maybe 17. So I do all of the marketing and advertising for Bremer Jewelry. It's also my family's company. So my mother has owned it since 1984. You guys might know Rhonda Daly. She's actually doing a Centurion webinar today at 2:00. So the girls were booked today, but just super happy to be here, especially partnered with the team at TSG to hopefully help you guys navigate a really interesting topic that's our reality every day. So.
Definitely. Thanks for that. And again, my name is Cody. So I'm the Director of Integrated Strategy at the Smithy Group. So on a daily basis, working both over our brand and our media teams to oversee all the strategy and execution for our full client roster, which includes many clients in the jewelry industry and also Ashley. So Ashley, I think we've worked together 9 to 10 months, close to maybe a year. Mm-hmm. Pretty close to that. And maybe if you want to give just a brief overview of kind of why you decided to partner with an agency before we get started.
So I actually met Ben at the Plum Club probably 5 years ago. And we were just really struggling. I wanted so badly to be, I guess it was 6 years ago. I wanted so badly to be agency independent at that time. I just felt like we were kind of all over the place. We didn't have our identity set. We just didn't have the right things going on in marketing and advertising, and coming from a world where, my mother was incredibly skilled at traditional media and just kind of the compounding complexities of digital media and trying to self-educate, it was like, we need to figure out something else because I just feel like we're lost. And so I sat down with Ben for about 3 hours. God bless him for giving me that time. And he kind of I had all of these ideas and he kind of just set us on a path. And so we actually did create an internal team. We became agency independent, kind of got everything on the straight and narrow, and then decided, look, things are really evolving in digital marketing, and being the owner's daughter, and which you all know, because most jewelers are family businesses, doesn't mean you sit at your desk and do marketing all day. And so the self-education was not being maintained, and things continued to change. And I knew that there was a better way to spend the money. And so obviously that trust had been built with Ben in the years previous. And so we reached out to see if it would be a good partnership. And we really talked for probably about 2 months before deciding to partner for our digital marketing. And so, like Cody said, it's been about a year, and things are great. So it's awesome, and I can't wait to tell you about what that process looks like.
It's been a very quick, almost a year. It's crazy. It's been almost a year.
It's been a very quick, almost a year.
Yeah, of course. I'm going to do a little bit of audience participation first. So we do want this to everyone to be able to take something away from it, whether are a retailer that you're doing it on your own, like Ashley was an agency independent, or you're working with somebody. So in the chat, can everyone just type in a 1 if you are doing it on your own, or 2 if maybe you're working with somebody else or you have a team, just so we can kind
Yeah,
of
either
see
it's a
what the mix
consultant or an
is.
agency, or so 1 if you're doing it all by yourself, which praying for you now, or 2 if you're not got some help.
Okay, see a 1 here, so maybe a mix of both. So like we said, as we go through this today, really being able to see both aspects of it and kind of what it takes for us to do it together, even if you are kind of doing it on your own, I think the same philosophy still applies and kind of what you
Totally.
can do to have a successful campaign. So with that, just kind of an overview of what we are going to be talking about today. So going through really 4 different stages of kind of how we map things out. So 1 is initial planning. So what are we doing before we get ready to launch a campaign? Then we go to step 2. So now we're actually executing, we're getting everything ready to go. Then that leads us to 3, where we actually launch the campaign. The campaign is live and active. And then 4, what are we doing post campaign? So what do we do after everything's wrapped? How do we come back together and really talk about what we learned and how we're going to use that on for the future? And then kind of how we want to frame it up is really through an example campaign. So for this one, this was Think Inside the Box. This was a holiday campaign, which Ashley will touch about in a little bit, but we're going to use this kind of as a guide as we go out through all of these stages and talk about what we were doing for this particular campaign. But all of these topics relate to kind of what our process looks like overall. Ashley, do you want to talk a little bit more about Think Inside the Box?
Sure. So, Think Inside the Box, we're using literally our largest campaign as the example for today's talk. But Think Inside the Box is our catchphrase, our slogan, our basically our brand for the holiday season. And it came from several years ago out of actually an outdoor campaign. You all know the challenges of when you purchase advertising, what kind of jewelry do you put on there? And so Rhonda was just thinking, like, let's not even put jewelry on there. Let's just put our packaging on there and let the guest or the viewer just kind of dream about what they would want inside their Bremer box. So I think inside the box, obviously play on words with think outside the box. And so that's been our go-to. It's very recognizable in the community. It's applicable on traditional and digital. And so it's all encompassing, right? Which is great because you can focus on bridal, you can focus on fashion, and everything in between. And it fit very well cross-platform as well. Like I said, being able to put it on social, in print, and continue on there. So that's kind of where Think Inside the Box came into play. But also, it is this huge opportunity, this huge. It's like where do you put your dollars? Where do you put this
Mm.
image? And so that's where having an agency and having someone that again is well versed, much more well versed than I would be able to make myself be, come into play and help it be really successful.
I think what we talked about yesterday as we were prepping was we call it a campaign, even though when you see here, this does cover, Facebook and Instagram, Google Display, covered YouTube pre-roll, and it was both fashion and bridal. So it's like all these platforms times 2, essentially, because they're different subject matter and different
Right.
messaging, even though it's an overarching theme. But so through this, while we call this one master campaign, just know that it was broken out amongst a variety of individual campaigns based on what we were doing.
Well,
But
and I
we'll
think
pick out
that's
some.
that's a really good point because being a creative myself, I think everything has to match, right? So Think Inside the Box campaign is all the same fonts and all the same pictures and all the same color schemes and things like that. But the team at TSU was able to really break it down and create relevant content that maybe didn't visually match, but it related to the audience that we were advertising to. And so when you kind of think about the traditional thought process of a campaign, it is that everything matches, but trying to kind of break that stigma down and realize that you're really just trying to have a consistent message. The heart of the message is consistent cross-platform that relates to a specific audience.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a good point. So with that, we'll kind of dive into it. So that first stage is the initial planning, and Ashley, I'll throw it back over to you to kind of talk about, because it really is kind of you all first thinking about what you want to do and
Yeah.
kind of what you're setting up.
And so, sorry. Right. I mean, goal setting, no one is unfamiliar with that. And so it is really hard when you come into a season and you obviously have sales goals, you have inventory goals, you have goals maybe based on your clients and things like that. So how do you set goals for this that makes sense with everything else? So we at Bremer actually work with sales and with inventory together to understand the different, what kind of product are you buying? What kind of sales training are you doing? What kind of advertising are you accomplishing to meet these different goals? And, when it comes to setting that budget, I was kind of joking with Cody yesterday. It's almost like this like poker game, right? Where
Mhm.
it's like, well, I don't want to just throw out a number. It's like, okay, well, this is kind of what we want. How much do you think it's going to take? And then you guys are kind of like, well, we could do this, this, and this. And so my approach is always kind of like, well, give me pie in the sky. Like if your budget was limitless, how much would you actually need to just like blow it out of the park? And then what would be like your step down from that, right? And so I think that having options and being presented options has been incredibly helpful in just helping us understand the value of our dollar in this digital marketing space, because it's incredibly easy to overspend if you're not doing it correctly. Speaking from experience, we have definitely overspent in these areas because we weren't necessarily allocating the dollars in the right areas. So, um, we have obviously door counts that we pay attention to. We want to make sure that there are people coming into the store. We also want to look at web traffic. And again, we'll kind of touch on this a little bit later, but your website traffic, we look at our website as our store three or our third store. And so those numbers coming in are just as important as the numbers walking in the doors of our physical locations. But just like the quality of those guests walking in our doors, we also look at the quality of the guests visiting our website. And so we don't just look at that number of, oh my gosh, we had, 2,000 people to our website today. It's we had 2,000 people that stayed for over 3 minutes. Half of them were returning customers, and our bounce rate was lower than it had ever been before.
Mhm.
So we're looking at different things like that, and then obviously your price per ticket, your sales volume, and new customers. Digital marketing is mainly, we're looking at it as a acquisition medium, right? So we are trying to get new customers in the door. We all know it costs a lot more money to get new customers, and so that is where a large portion of our goal is within those new customers.
What's for you like the timeline of whenever you start thinking about all this? Because it is fairly early on. It's mostly like in the summer. You're already starting to think about what to do in November.
Yeah, we're like a quarter plus ahead, right? So we're doing Valentine's Day in December, or we're doing Q1 bridal in beginning of December after we've launched everything for holiday. Like
Mhm.
right now, we're already, and things are a little hard right now. I know for everybody because we're just in a different mindset now than we've ever been in before. So trying to remember how it used to be.
Mm.
But yeah, we are planning our holiday magazine now. We're starting to plan our Q4 events next month. So we really try to, which sometimes makes it hard to pivot after you get your metrics back from running a campaign. But we are about a quarter ahead when it comes to planning.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think it's important to stay ahead as much as possible, even given
Hmm.
certain circumstances.
Hmm.
So now if we jump down, so the initial planning and what it looks like for us from an agency perspective. So Ashley's kind of going on and she's talked with the team internally about what they want to do and what they want to accomplish. And then now she comes to us and kind of gives us the overview of this is what our approach is going to be, or this is what our main goals are. So we have a meeting and then we take in that information and start to think, okay, based on what the goals are for Bremer Jewelry, what are the best ways that we can accomplish this? And we're looking at a lot of things. So we're looking at our target audiences. So who are we trying to go after? And then once we know who that target audience is, now we're mapping back to what platforms they're most active on. So for any given campaign, it can be completely different platforms based on what we're doing, based on that target audience. And then we're also understanding, from a goal standpoint, is it to ultimately everything at that point is to drive store traffic, but are we doing that, through products? Are we doing that through a blog in particular? We'll see later on in some examples that for Think Inside the Box, it was kind of two pronged in that, Ashley and the team has set out on some of their hero products, which are part of what she calls the Bremer Story Collection. So these really unique products in different categories. So that was important to push from an online perspective to the website that then led to in-store sales. So we were focusing on some hero products, and that was important to us. And then also focusing as well on a blog that kind of highlighted some of their top favorites as elements that you wanted to really push for kind of the holiday season.
And I want to go back to this because I think this is so important in the planning. It's not just this two-step, like I
Mhm.
go, you go. It's very much
Right.
a back and forth because of the, as business owners, you have vision and you have pride behind your brand, and you're trying to communicate to this creative team, like, yes, we have these metrics and these goals, but we also want it to look and feel like this. And so that's that content request, that last bullet there, um, is really a collaborative effort where they're kind of recommending to you from the more technical marketing side, well, these are the things that work when it comes to this, particular product shots or how you package the content. And you're kind of sitting over here, well, this is what I have. And so we're going to talk about that later when it comes to execution. But that content request, I have to say, from just being a retailer that has worked with several agencies and independently, that that particular chunk is so helpful and so such a collaborative and good effort to help us execute. I haven't had that in the past, and that is something that really has changed the efficiency of our workflow so that our marketing team can get so much more done.
Yeah, that content request typically, that will come several weeks in advance of anything launching while we're also planning out the rest of the strategy. So we'll talk through execution in a minute, but what we like to do especially is get that content request over to you as soon as possible. That way you have ample time to get the content, capture the content, because that all takes a lot of planning and especially
Yeah.
time to sit down and craft that out.
Mhm.
It is a good point that you mentioned though about kind of the back and forth. So even as you're throwing out an idea of, hey, this is what we want to do, then it really is a collaborative effort on all parts of. That's a great idea. We might think the approach is a little bit different than what the initial vision is, or
Right.
based on what we've already done previously, we know that we might need to take a different approach. So
Right.
through that, it is a ball kind of bouncing back and forth till we nail down, okay, this is what the actual vision is. And then once we have that, kind of goes along with those icons. Now, are we going on Facebook or Instagram or Google? How does email play a part in that? So now we're starting to think
Mhm.
through how did all this come together to support the overall goal for what the Bremer has in mind.
And then I call you halfway through it and go, "Hey, Pandora's doing a last minute promotion. Can we like weave that in there somehow?"
So let's put this in, and we just launched yesterday, but we got to
Yep.
add in 2 more things. I'm like,
Okay.
well, of
Please
course,
do.
no problem, no problem. That leads into the next point, which is now we've kind of planned everything out. Now it's time to actually execute and start getting everything ready to go.
And
So you want
again,
to talk about that? Yeah.
yeah, this is kind of that, I mean, almost kind of like the budget game, where you kind of go back and forth. The execution is as well,
Mm.
because you may have this grand plan, but maybe product doesn't come in, or the stock images that you get are terrible, or someone gets sick and you just can't do the work. So the fulfilling that content request is kind of where I have the most amount of fun. Now, we had and have an on staff photographer. So we are incredibly fortunate to be able to have that and be able to produce an arsenal of photography of the jewelry actually in our store, on our associates, on our customers, things like that. But in the times when maybe we don't have the opportunity to plan a photo shoot, we either work with other local photographers who have photographed our brides maybe, or have done work of our guests, and we maybe use their pictures. And then that's kind of a nice thing because then they end up sharing the content because they're like, oh look, Bremer posted my picture, and that helps a little bit. Or we work with our vendors as much as possible to source photography or video. Um, and my recommendation here is, just when you think you have enough, do a little bit more. Take that one last picture, take that one last video, shoot it a different way. You cannot have enough photography. As we're learning during this pandemic, I thought I had. I mean, we have over 40,000 images in our arsenal, and I thought I had enough, but we're continuing to kind of reuse and restyle some of the photographs that we've already done. And then when it comes to the personalized videos, I my recommendation for those is just to not make it a big deal, right? So just kind of take your time. It doesn't have to be um, It doesn't have to be perfect. People relate to the real. And if you mess up or you're like, oh, wait a minute, I kind of lost my train of thought or whatever, people relate to that. People like that. So don't be scared of video. Just do it. Do it once and then do it again. And if you don't feel comfortable, ask somebody to help. Ask your friend or your client. And also other people talking about your business versus you talking about your business can tend to come off pretty good anyway. And then blogs, this is definitely a collaborative effort. I write the spine or the bones of the blog after the recommendation from the team, and then they kind of go in and make sure that it's appropriate with metadata and maybe restructuring it so that Google favors the blog better than what I could have done on my own.
That kind of goes into the traditional asset element. So even on your side, while we're handling all the digital, you're still handling all the traditional stuff as well. And even looking at what have you maybe already done there, or what could be weaved in through both. So even in the content requests that we deliver for digital, you can pull some of those out to also impact traditional as well. Or, we'll take that radio spot that you did and drop that over a video and just maximize all the individual assets that we have in different places, just weaving them through together as much as possible just to save time and energy, really.
Yeah, Mother's Day is a good example for that. We were on broadcast television for the first time in a while because everyone's at home watching television. So we had a 30-second television commercial with a voiceover. Well, the voiceover ended up being a radio spot, and then the video got dissected into like a 15 and a 30 for digital. And then the graphics from the television were actually used in the email blast. So it was don't reinvent the wheel and don't think that you have to. Think about we're kind of jaded because we're creating it, right? But people on the other side aren't going to notice. If anything, they're going to kind of recognize it a little bit, and hopefully your frequency efficiency will have an uptick.
Definitely. And then one more thing that you kind of mentioned here was the personalized videos. I think Ashley knows, like, anytime we have an event, we're automatically, one of the first requests is, hey, we want you to film a video just to tell your audience what's happening. And it is kind of like that. It's not professional. It's just behind the scenes, selfie style, just talking about that. But we always see that resonate a lot. And we see this across a number of retailers. So definitely, if you're not getting on the camera in front of your audience, it's something that we recommend. And even like Ashley mentioned, if you're getting different staff members to do it as well. So even as we've ran bridal campaigns, we've had 3 different store members that it wasn't Ashley in front of the camera, it was the rest of the team, because they're the ones that are recognizable whenever someone goes into the store. It's a familiar face that they can see.
And guys, I'm telling you, I roll my eyes every time that they ask me to do a video. I know it's coming. And for those of you that know me, probably like, oh, whatever, you love doing videos. And I'm like, so we do it. But when we get the results, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just surprised every time. And I don't know why I'm surprised, but I am. And there are people that walk into the store and mention them, or they have like even a screenshot or the comments and the engagement that lead to someone setting an appointment. So it is definitely worth the pain that it might cause in the beginning when you start making those videos, but totally worth it.
The payoff is there.
Yep.
So while Ashley is off getting all the content and capturing that for us, what we're doing from an standpoint is starting to create the campaign brief. So this is kind of like the centralized document that houses all of the information about what we're doing. So it includes kind of an approach and overview section that breaks out what our goals are. It includes the dates, all of the budget information, all the targeting information. And then we're also within this document starting to develop the copy that will go in place once the creative has been dropped in as well. So our team is going to go ahead, but even before we have the content, we're able to write the copy because we know what to expect. So we're writing that copy out for each audience, going through the verbiage, going through our calls to actions, and then ultimately where we're going to lead them back to, either on the website or what the ad experience is going to look like. And then once Ashley's done with kind of all of that content that we've requested, those get put into a Dropbox folder, and then our team pulls those out, drops them in the document, and gets everything finalized. And once that's done, we kind of have all the pieces of the puzzle together. Then we send that back over to Ashley for review and kind of go through, okay, we've talked about it. We've started getting the assets. We started getting everything. Here is the final plan. This is all of the ad examples. This is the strategy. This is how much we're spending. Everything's in this one document. So now both of our teams are aligned. And then we're going through that. Maybe we go through and make some revisions based on copy or based on even recent changes that have happened just within the past week. So that's happened before where stuff changes. Maybe products have sold out that we need to like put back in. So we go through and do all that. And then once everything's approved, now we're officially ready to launch. So now our team, TSG, is building out the campaigns either in the platform. So we're doing that in Facebook Ads Manager, where you build ads for Facebook and Instagram, or Google Ads, or any other platforms that we're using at the time. So we're building out those frames, those wireframes, and that structure. And then other members from our team, after we built them, go through and review everything. That way, nothing gets posted that maybe we had a spelling error, or maybe the page was
Mhm.
incorrect, or the video was wrong. So we QA all of that to make sure we're in a good place. And then once that's been approved, we are officially launched. And now we're in the game of launching the campaign, and we're ready to see some other results.
Mhm.
And that leads us
I think
into
I want to go back to that campaign brief really quickly, because there are
mm,
times when, again, I'm still focused on images and words. I'm reading that brief. I'm like, ooh, I'm not sure about that word, or ooh, why does it kind of sound like that? And the team is reminding me that, writing for web and writing for ads and where these are going to be is a little bit different. They're also incorporating, um, maybe keywords or relevant phrases that have been successful in the past that
mhm,
maybe I don't think sound good or look good, but they've been proven. So that's the other side of it, is where I'm not living in that space every day all the time, because my time can't afford it, and they're helping kind of layer in where we're maintaining the brand, but making it a more successful opportunity to grab a sale. So
yeah, that's a great point. So for this, what I wanted to show before we kind of moved on was what some of the actual ads looked like and what our thought process was behind thinking inside the box. So as I mentioned earlier, for Ashley and her team, it was important that we focus on some of these hero products or some of the story collections. So one of the ad types that we implemented was a collection ad, which you'll see here on the left. So what this is a a standard ad. So we have our copy, then we have a hero image or a video, which is what you would find in most ads. What we've done is now taken her Facebook catalog, where we've uploaded all of these products on the back end and listed them here to show and also to shuffle based on each person. So when someone sees this ad, they can click the more button. And when they click that, rather than going straight to the website, they're going to see a full list of products still within Facebook and Instagram, but we've curated all of these based on those story collections. So we're only showing them what we want them to see. And then as each person sees it, they start shuffling based on Facebook's algorithm of what's most important or what Facebook thinks is more relevant. So, oh, for this demographic, I think these pieces, based on what we've seen before, are going to get more clicks. So we're going to shift them to the top versus other ones. So in that regard, it helps us increase the number of clicks that we can get because it's automatically updating in real time. So we're using the data in real time to optimize and to update. This is kind of the social standpoint there. So once they've seen this ad, now we're getting them back to the website, to that product that they clicked on, whichever in particular product they clicked on, they'll go back to the website and see that one. So they were here and they clicked on, to the moon necklace, they come here, and now they're actually on the website viewing the product. And then if they want to go ahead, they can inquire, they can start to browse more. We're just giving them
mhm,
that flexibility to kind of go on and discover the products for themselves. But what we're really doing here is collecting the data. So we're trying to get as many clicks back as possible here, because the other element that was important was the blog post. So now we want to start showing the blog post too. So then it dips into this element. So that was just social for the prospecting audiences. So now after people on social have seen products and click through, we're going to hit them back on social and get them to the blog. But now this is where
mhm,
the other elements come into play too. So our Google display campaign, our YouTube pre-roll video ads, and also our email campaigns all went back to the blog for those top products. So, and Ashley can speak to this, but the blog had a lot of links packed into it. That way it wasn't just going there, viewing the information and leaving a blog like you typically would, but it was actually getting them to
mhm.
click through and to view different collections from that.
Yeah. And so going back to the slide before, just really quick, I mean, everyone on this call is a consumer as well as a retailer. Um, and so how annoying is it when you click on something, when the ad has actually worked, it's captured your attention, you click on it, but you cannot find the product that was shown in the ad.
Mhm.
We take that super seriously, because we want to break down as many barriers to product as possible, right? So we don't want all this crap in the way. We just want to get the visitor to the piece that they're interested in, and hopefully there's enough tools on the page to close the sale. And so that was something that was very important to us. That Facebook catalog is definitely not to be underestimated. It's something TSG has worked really hard on for us, is to make sure that we have that product instantly clickable, and it's taking the guests directly to that. And then when it comes to the blogs, I mean, at Christmas time, again, retailers, we should be doing our shopping for our families in October and November. We don't. We're all probably doing it in December. And so how important are those gift guides? And how many gift guides did you scroll through for birthdays, for Father's Day, for Mother's Day? And so that was just kind of the feeling that we wanted to have. And just, I mean, I don't think you can have too much. We did 8 here. These were a little bit, we had another one that was a little bit longer, but we used our figurehead, obviously her 8 favorite things, and we actually incorporated some non-jewelry items as well, because we just wanted that emotional connection, but we did want a ton of backlinks to our site. And so it's kind of like, oh, this may be Rhonda's favorite thing, but then here's 3 other things like it. And so you're
Mhm.
quadrupling your backlinks at that point. And this worked very, very well for us with in-store conversion. I can think of two $2,000 pieces that sold because of this blog specifically. Um, so this was a very successful campaign for us for sure.
Yep, definitely. So now we go in, we've just launched, now the campaign is officially running. So what are we doing kind of on the retailer side and also on the agency side as things have just gotten up and running?
Yeah, and so one thing that I would always recommend, and it's very hard to do, it's regardless of what position you have in your company, is communicating to the entire team, right? So, well, why do the salespeople need to know what marketing's doing? Um, that could be a whole separate webinar, but we have found that I basically just like I'm doing now, I make a YouTube video that talks through the campaign, that talks about our strategy, who we're trying to target, what pieces we're advertising, what goals that we have, and things like that. And I just kind of lay out to the sales associates what marketing is expecting. Hey, we're putting this money out into the community. This is what we're expecting. I need your help in telling me if it's working. And it just like kind of puts a red flag in their mind that when they start to see this type of guest come in, or yeah, marketing did, like I've sold this piece 4 times. That is one of the pieces that marketing did. It just really helps us because when you walk up to a sales associate in the midst of holiday and you're like, how many new customers did you have today? How did they hear about us? What items are really selling? What are you showing? And people aren't like, they're not, they just, that is not their mindset. But if before the craziness happens, you kind of set those expectations and you really overview it with them as a marketer, you can get a little bit more back out of them. We do have a how did you hear about us? And this holiday season, or when we would recap with the sales associates would basically take out their phone and hold it in front of my face. And they're like, this is literally all guests did to me all day long is show me a Facebook ad, show me an item off of our website, show me a screenshot from an email. And they just walked in and said, do you have this? Now, not the most romantic sales story out there, but it still it still moves jewelry through the doors. And so we were very, very happy with that. Um, Also, so that's kind of the first thing that we do. And we're trying to, again, you have perception of the guest and you have perception of your sales associate. So take those 2 degrees for what it is, but that's the best you're going to get as a marketer as far as what was working. Also, it's really important to not just let your campaign run, right? So we need to look at live data. Are people coming in the door? Are people asking for the product you're advertising? Did you sell out of something that you're still advertising and you need to pull? Are you advertising 10 items that haven't even been taken out of the case in 2 weeks because no one's interested? So we're really trying to pay attention to the store activities and make sure that we're updating the ad sets to reflect what's happening in the store. I hope that makes sense. And of course, tracking new customers and the things that people are buying. We want to see what people are buying. Are they buying what we're advertising? Are they buying something completely different? Do we just sell 10 pendants that we don't even advertise at all? Well, let's get that pendant on a Facebook ad because obviously it's a good seller that we didn't think about. So again, I hope all that makes sense. But that is really, I think, a crucial part of this process that a lot of retailers maybe don't do because when you don't necessarily have the time or see the payoff. But something I think that we have pivoted in many campaigns halfway through, even almost at its end, and seen more success because of that pivot. So
Yeah, the real time aspect is so important. And that's the advantage that you have in digital that you don't really have in traditional. Um,
yeah.
so it is part of that looking at the metrics and, it's applicable for you at Bremer, but it could be applicable for someone on the call. But, what we've even done is because you have 2 locations, looking real time at the budget as well. Maybe we're halfway through the month and we're like,
Yes.
hey, we need to
Point.
support one store more than the other. Then we
Yes.
start to pull budget, shift budget around and support the store that needs some more traffic for that month and might be a little lower in terms of sales.
Yep.
So those are things we're looking at. For our side, we are looking at the platform metrics. So we're in Facebook, we're in Google, we're looking at things like the reach and the frequency. So how many times are people seeing the ad? We want them to see it a decent amount of times, but we never want to be overbearing or feel like it's too much. So where they're going to click the button that says, don't show me this ad, because that then impacts and hurts our performance from that standpoint. We're also looking at things like the number of clicks to the site, but again, it's not just like Ashley mentioned the number of clicks, but it's the quality of clicks. So even though we might be driving a higher cost per click than we've seen before, now we start looking at Google Analytics and looking back at that
Mhm.
traffic, and it's like, oh, they're spending about a minute longer on the site than everyone else. This is actually pretty good. This is going to lead them further to the conversion. So
Worth the money.
it's worth the money in that sense. It's in that sense, it's worth the higher cost that we're paying for that. So all of those we're looking at in real time. And again, like Ashley mentioned, communicating back and forth about what's going on. And that does lead, even to adjusting target audiences. So maybe, our age range is open. It's about a 20-year span. But if Ashley's saying it's, within this 5-year span, then okay, let's adjust the ads to optimize to that because that's what we need. Or if that's performing popularly, let's maybe target a different audience if we want to draw it up higher based on average ticket value or number of customers, et cetera. So we can go through and fluctuate that. And then also the creative elements. So we do A/B testing, but it's really A, B, C, D, E, F, G testing because
Oh
the
my
number
gosh,
of
you
ads.
guys, I wish we could have a whole webinar on that too. I give them like 20 pictures and approve 10 pieces of copy, and there's 67 ads that
This
get made from that.
and so Brittany is our brand lead for this, and I've talked to her before. I'm building the campaign, and I'm like, this campaign has so many ads. Why do we do this? And I'm like, this was completely my fault because this is what I wanted it to be. But yeah, so in that we're at times running 60 variations of ads, and it's videos, it's carousels, just to test everything against each other to see what's going to work best. We have a general idea almost all the time of what's going to perform the best, but in all these scenarios, mostly we want to go into it with an open mind and give another chance just to see, because we're not really losing anything because the creative we would already need for somewhere else. So it's just cutting it and recrafting
Yep.
it and putting it again. So we're looking at all of that. And then based on that, do we need to pause creative? Do we need to maybe even come back and request something else? So even a lot of times if it's maybe for a particular event and we have a long lead time for a campaign. So it could be, we're starting to advertise 3 weeks in advance for a paid campaign, but now we are 3 days out from an event. Do we go back in and update the ad copy to say happening this week or happening soon? Just to kind of provide that more intense call to action so people know it's here, it's almost here. I need to make sure I RSVP, or if I've RSVP'd, I need to make sure that it's on my calendar and that I'm going to be there. So
Mhm.
again, we're leveraging all the ad platforms where we build the ads, and we're also using Google Analytics as well to look back at that web data because it is so important, like Ashley mentioned, as the third store of what's really happening whenever they come in.
Mhm.
So all those optimizations we're making on the fly, and then now that the campaign is over, what are we doing? So for this one, then we kind of have a meeting where we come back together and we present typically something like a campaign report, which you see here in the bottom right-hand corner. So this kind of just goes over all the metrics, so we can go and say, this is what we saw, this is what happened, and then now it's on Ashley to say, now you tell us what you saw, or what did you see from
Mhm.
that? What are the results you're expecting? Which you use some different software to kind of pull that data too.
Yeah.
So we're pulling that one, we're kind of understanding what was happening, and then based on that, looking at the key learnings. So what do we learn? If it maybe was from a creative standpoint, hey, we found out that videos to the male audience in this demographic performed better than we expected. This is something that we can now start to funnel into a bridal campaign down the road or something else. We know those key learnings, we know what we're looking for. And then also, like I mentioned, how that data feeds into those next campaigns. So what's coming down the road or what's next? How do we
Mhm.
leverage some of what we learned here? So even if something wasn't necessarily completely successful, it's never a failure because we've learned something from that. And then we know how we need to pivot and make it better for the next time.
Well, retailers, the unicorn target audience of males 18 to 34, where the heck are they? Right? It's like you can't, we have, and we have found, I mean, again, you say, quote, not successful, but with that very hard to reach demographic, we learned what doesn't work, and we're getting better and we're getting better. And we had a bridal event in March that was fantastic. And it was because we learned what not to do, and those little blips of success built on those for that demographic. And after a year of working at it, we know where they are now and we know what they respond to.
And that was after having about 2 or 3 other bridal events before that that kind of each
Right.
culminate and hopefully get better and better as we're learning more
And an
about.
evergreen bridal campaign too.
Mhm.
So,
Always running in the midst of that. That's what's interesting too. I mean, for us, as we come up to a year of now, most of the campaigns we have are standard, so we can even start to match back to the previous year
mhm.
of what we have ran before. So before that, it's always talking to Ashley about, well, what did you do last year? What did you find successful? And kind of building something new. But now we're at a point a year into the relationship where we've kind of already have those new established points there, so we can go back to what we've done
Mhm.
previously and just keep growing from there,
Yep.
which is important. So with that, that was kind of the wrap up. Again, I hope you found it valuable, whether you are working independently or whether you work with an agency, of what that process does look like from the beginning to the end. And if you're handling all yourself, like Ashley mentioned, we respect you for that and understand that it can be challenging at times. And you're just working through it as best as possible. Um,
Yep.
with that, I'll open it up for any questions. I see the Q&As up here, nothing coming through yet. So if you do have a question, make sure to let us know. We have about 20 minutes left. Um, so we'll give a few minutes for questions. Ashley, do you have any final thoughts while we're waiting for some of
Yeah,
those
I
to come
did.
through?
I kind of skipped over back to execution when you're kind of talking with your sales team. It's also really important to talk to your guests, right? So one thing that Bremer prides ourselves on is replying to every single little thing. So there may be those 60 ads out there, but Bremer is liking or loving every single one of our own ads, and we are liking or commenting on every single comment. So if there is any engagement whatsoever of a guest on any ad anywhere, we are making sure that that guest sees and they're heard, right? So whether we're tagging them with a cute response or we're just liking their comment, we want to make sure that we maximize that engagement and maximize that relationship online, because I'm not spending X amount of dollars a month just to let them all sit there, right? I want to invite them into the store. And then that's another thing, is that we make sure that anyone that engages with our ad sets, we invite them to like our page. And I
Mm.
think it's a really easy step that I think a lot of people forget. And I'm still surprised at the number of notifications I get of this person, these 12 people liked your page today. And it was like, oh, these are all people I invited in the last 24 hours to like my page. And those are people that were not following you that your ad just got.
Mhm.
So again, I think that's a really important thing to do. That it's the first thing I do. The first 15 minutes every morning, that's what I do. I check all the inboxes, I check all the comments. That's how long it takes. Google reviews as well, and I just reply to everybody, and then I let it go, and I answer everybody the next day.
Yeah, that's part of the outbound engagement, which if anyone's heard us talk about, like the organic strategy is so important, where you're liking and you're commenting something valuable, which we say is more than this 3 words or more. So there's some actual exchanges going on back and forth. It's really clienteling in the digital space.
100%.
Yeah. Someone's asking, how often do you blog?
Right now? No, I'm just kidding. I would say that we average 2 a month. Um, and we just switched website providers. And so we have a function within our website to actually time out a blog. So if you go now, you won't necessarily see all of them, because some of them were event blogs. And we have people get confused when they come to our website and they see March Bridal event and maybe they see some special offers. They don't maybe necessarily understand that they're not available right now. So I would say that when we're in the flow and we're in the normal, about 2 a month. Would you say that's
Yeah, that's probably,
right?
yeah. And then depending on also any kind of holidays that are coming up and how those get kind of thrown into the mix.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Good
Someone else is
question.
yeah, great question. What's the
Start
ad
with one. If you can get one done, just do one.
one? Yeah, I mean, that's the important part. Like, even if it's one every 2 months, it's what you can get done and kind of set the pace for yourself. That way, you don't like, oh, I'm going to do 10 blogs this month, and then it's hard to even get one done.
Because one very well written Google friendly blog can do you way more good than 10 poorly written, non relevant blogs.
It's also important too to think about, because we see this in the analytics of blogs that kind of last over time. So
Oh my
even like
gosh.
last year, we were going through and looking at like, this is maybe in like last August, and we're looking and seeing, okay, July blogs from the previous year were coming back in because it was about maybe birthstones or something. So
Yep.
as you're even thinking about topics, like what's going to get you through the long haul with that, or how do you be strategic in what you're writing?
Hmm.
Someone else asked, what's the ad budget you have for your current campaigns, only digital marketing?
Sure. So the budgets obviously are going to fluctuate with the goals, and what the sales goals are. So we are very stringent on that 7%. That is a rule that we've had our whole since I've been there, which has been 10 years, is our marketing advertising spend is 7% of revenue. And so I'm responsible for that 7%, and I'm responsible for breaking it up on charitable giving, PR, in-store signage, direct mail, traditional media, digital media, basically anything that is marketing and advertising. So it is that the answer to that question, unfortunately, I know everyone wants like a set answer,
Mhm.
but it fluctuates because I'm moving the puzzle pieces around and moving the pie charts to try to figure out what makes the most sense. Like, am I going to, we run in our market, we run local radio all year long. So you guys know the story of the bucket, right? You put your rocks in the bucket, then you put your smaller rocks in the bucket, then the sand in the water. That's kind of how I approach the budget. What can I not live without? And in today's day and age, you can't really live without spending money the right way in the digital space.
Mhm.
So it's definitely local radio and digital are my top two expenses in marketing and advertising. And like I said, you can definitely overspend, but I would say that it depends on your market. It depends on your goals. It depends on um, the platforms you're using. Like, are you just doing paid search? Are you doing social as well? So
Mhm.
it depends. Terrible answer. I know everyone hates it.
It's a hard answer to question because it's also dependent, like you said, on your location. There's so many factors that you're considering, and the one
Yeah.
recommendation that we have as you're trying to structure your own budget is looking back at the goals. So, for example, let's say you want to drive e-commerce sales, and for every 200 people that come to my site, I can get one purchase from that. Then you can start thinking, okay, I can start researching the average cost per click, and then you work back from there. So, if it's going to cost me $1 per click, then $200 is going to get me 200 people. I think I'm going to get one sale from that, and then you match back your sales, and you can start working back that way. A lot of the things that we also do is look back at market saturation, which is important for us for bridal. So how much of that audience are we reaching that's in a relationship in that given area? We want to saturate the market as much as possible on a frequent basis. That way, when they think, oh, I need to get an engagement ring, they're thinking Bremer Jewelry or they're thinking about your brand. So through that, even as you're on the back end of the platform looking at and you're setting up your audience, so you can say, okay, I want to reach men that are in a relationship in this age range. Facebook in real time will give you that audience size in your area. And then when you put your budget in, it will tell you how much of them you reach in a given time frame. So you can start even without having a lot of knowledge going through there and putting in, if I spent $10 a day or $20 a day, you can see how much reach you're going to get. And from there, have a good idea of, okay, I want to really full blown take this on. As you spend more, you're going to reach more of that audience. I do this because it's a scale. So people think I'm just doing something random. So it's a scale that kind
Well,
of goes.
it actually is what you see on Ads Manager is the,
It tells you, oh, this is good. This is too broad. This is
yeah.
not enough. So with that, you can kind
I
of
knew
see.
what you were saying.
Okay.
But
It's like
just to
weird.
satisfy you a little bit, so our stores, we have two stores. They're an hour apart. We do a considerable amount of volume. It would not be unlikely to spend upwards of $5, $6, $7,000 a month on in the digital space. So, but
Across
I
both
also
stores.
have friends who are spending $2,000. I have friends that are spending $500. I have friends that are spending over $10,000. So
Mhm.
again, it just boils down to what you need and how much you can manage, I think is also an important factor.
Yeah, definitely. Someone says, is there a magic duration for a self-made video?
I think so. Do you think so?
I think the good is like the 15 to 30-second mark, because if someone's scrolling and sees a video that's like a minute, they're like, I don't want to see that. And they just kind of keep going. But
Mm-hmm.
for what I would say, 15 to 30 seconds is a good length.
And I think it depends on your demo. I think it depends on
Mhm.
who you're going after, because I feel like the to be engaged female has a much longer attention span when it comes to anything bridal
Mhm.
than a already married male. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
if he's in the zone for anniversary gifts or an upgrade, like you have 5 seconds to get his attention.
Right.
But the pre-engaged women who are seeking that information, I think you can be a little bit more a little bit longer
Mhm.
for sure. So I think it just depends on your message and your demo.
Kind of going along with that. So someone's saying, the success of radio is kind of surprising. Is that targeted for bridal? What kind of radio? What age demo?
Yeah, no problem. And again, we're Peoria, Central Illinois is a bubble, you guys. I love local radio. It returns. We buy about 12 stations deep between the two markets. Repeat the question again. I want to make sure I answer
So
it.
surprised about the success of radio. Is that targeted
Yep.
for bridal? What kind of radio? What age demo?
Okay. So very, very similar to the way that we structure our digital campaigns. We're doing the same on radio, on local radio. So we're doing basically 1 week on, 1 week off, sometimes 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. It just depends of an evergreen campaign. So it's just like I buy it and we are running all year long, no matter what. And that is basically 75% bridal, 25% like just generic branding, repairs, appraisals, whatever.
Mm.
So yes, bridal is going 100% of the time. And then when we have the special events, I usually run either a 5 to 10 day campaign on top of the what I call TOMA, top of mind awareness campaign for those events on local radio.
Mm. Cool. Someone's saying, let's see. Someone's asking, is radio still a viable ad media?
Again, it just depends on your market. I mean,
Mhm.
it works for us. It's worked for us faithfully for a very long time. Um, again, it depends on your market. Because I was just talking to a retailer in Georgia, and he's right outside of Atlanta, and we were just discussing marketing, and he's like, "Oh, I can't do local radio." I was like, "Well, why not?" He's like, "It's too expensive." I'm like, "It's too expensive? What are you talking about?" He's like, "Yeah, it's like $400 for a 30-second commercial." I'm like, "What?" I mean, like our number one station here in the best day part, I pay $39 for a 60-second commercial.
Hmm.
So that just goes to show again, it depends on your market.
Yeah.
But if anyone out there wants help with traditional media and tackling it, my husband sells media for a living, and I've been doing it for 10 years. So I would love to help you out if anyone needs help with that.
I mean, we've always talked about this before that if traditional works, then go that route as well. Like it can be paired up nicely with digital. Like we never had a conversation where I'm like, Ashley, don't spend your money there, give it to me instead. Like we want to find that
No.
good balance and that good medium of what's going to work because it is market specific and it is going to be dependent upon each area.
Well, and we were talking about this yesterday. It is not one or the other. We
Mhm.
all, I mean, it's an old adage, 50% of your marketing works. You just don't know what 50% it is, what half it is. And so you just kind of you have to meet your people where they're at all the time. And so you
Mhm.
may have a guy who is in his truck 2 hours a day listening to the same station, period, and he doesn't have a Facebook account. Or you could have the guy who's in his car for 15 minutes, is a station flipper, and is on Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat.
Mhm.
And you need to be there. You need to be there
Complete
consistently.
coverage.
Yep. And be everywhere that you can be. Be there
Mhm.
well.
Definitely. Last question. So it's an e-commerce question. So the average ticket per item on your website,
Yeah.
what's that for you? It's pretty
So
varied.
yeah, it is, but I mean, I could pull it up right now, because right now e-commerce is kind of all we've had. I
Mhm.
would say it's still about that 250 range. Um, we have a lot of people, like an obscene amount of people texting pictures from our website or walking into our store with a picture from our website. So like I'm a little bit jaded because they don't convert, which is okay. They're local. I want them in the store anyway to maintain that relationship. But it's just like they're so close. They literally are showing me a picture of the item in their cart, and they're asking me if it's available. And I'm like, you can add it
Mhm.
to your cart. It's available. But so I would say that's kind of a roundabout answer because our e-commerce sales are small. And I would say of the ones that actually come through are about that 250 to $300. Um, but so many people are coming in the store and buying because of their online shopping. They've already done it. Now they're just coming in the store to see it in real life and do the transaction person to person.
It's kind of like that last step over the finish line to come into the store and get it versus buying it online. That kind of goes what we're talking about. You're getting more online purchases now, but it is most influential because of the state that we're in. So it's kind of like what's going to happen post when this is over, and you have no metrics to compare it to anything that's ever happened previously.
I was very surprised just very during this pandemic at the amount of people that didn't want to complete the purchase on the website. They called, they wanted to curbside, they wanted us to ship it to them. They wanted to talk to somebody, like talk to a person before they just clicked a button.
Mhm.
It was just way more than I ever thought it was going to be. But it was great. Again, an opportunity to do an add-on, do an upsell, really get to know them a little bit better than just kind of clicking the buttons on the back end of the e-commerce. So
Yeah, definitely. With that, I think we will wrap. Ashley, thank you so much for chatting with me today. Always
hey,
love talking.
do you want to talk at like 2 o'clock today
I think
too?
we're going to talk a little bit later today. We're just going to keep
Yeah.
going.
We have a Bremer TSG meeting.
Just with less friends here on the call. So thank you everyone for attending. As always, if you have any questions, you can reach out to myself, find us at thesmithygroup.com or Ashley, which is bremerjewelry.com. And I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you guys for tuning in. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks.